2 miles beneath the North Atlantic, the RMS Titanic rests in total darkness. The physical evidence at the wreck site points to a disaster that began long before the collision, starting with microscopic flaws hidden deep within the ship's structure. In 1911, the Harland and Wolff shipyards in Belfast were tasked with an engineering project of a scale the world had never seen. They were building 3 Olympic-class liners simultaneously, each requiring thousands of steel plates and millions of rivets sourced from across the United Kingdom. This chart shows impact energy curves for the hull steel. Data points for Titanic's plates show a dangerously high ductile to brittle transition temperature. While strong in warm water, at freezing temperatures it lost its ability to bend, becoming as brittle as glass. To hold those plates together, builders used 3 million wrought iron rivets. Modern forensic analysis shows these rivets contained over 9% slag, a glassy byproduct of the iron-making process. That is more than 3 times the normal amount, creating internal microcracks, making the rivets structurally weak. Because the steel was temperature-sensitive and the rivets were riddled with impurities, the Titanic was launched with its structural integrity already compromised. It was a ticking time bomb before it ever left the dock. Inside the ship, these metallurgical flaws were buried under layers of luxury. Titanic was a rigid class system on the water, and the commercial pressure to serve the world's elite extended even into the ship's safety technology. The ship carried a state-of-the-art Marconi wireless radio, run by operators John Phillips and Harold Bride. Their transmitter was the most powerful of its era, capable of reaching stations 2,000 miles away at night. But the radio wasn't a dedicated safety tool. It was a commercial venture, financed by sending personal telegrams for first-class passengers. By the night of the disaster, the operators were struggling with a massive backlog of over 250 outgoing messages. By prioritizing the social correspondence of the elite over operational navigation, the Titanic effectively blinded the only system capable of seeing hazards in its path. On April 14th, the Titanic steamed into the freezing waters of the North Atlantic. The water temperature had dropped to -2 degrees Celsius. At 7:50 p.m., the ship Mesaba sent an urgent report of heavy pack ice and large icebergs directly ahead. But Phillips and Bride were exhausted from processing passenger telegrams to the Cape Race coast station. The warning from the Mesaba was missing the mandatory MSG prefix, which would have required a personal acknowledgement from the captain. Instead, it was tagged as a routine ice report and filed away, never reaching the bridge. At 11:40 p.m., the Titanic struck the iceberg. Because the -2-degree water was well below the steel's transition temperature, the hull plates didn't dent or bend, they violently shattered. The impact force transferred to the weak, high-slag rivets. Their heads popped off instantly, allowing the hull seams to unzip and water to pour into the forward compartments. It was a perfect microscopic chain reaction. A misfiled radio prefix led to a collision that the brittle steel and flawed rivets were never designed to survive. As the bow dipped, Phillips and Bride finally turned to their safety protocols, broadcasting the first CQD and SOS distress signals into the night. The SS Californian was only a few miles away and actually saw the Titanic's distress rockets. But in 1912, ships weren't required to have their radio operators on duty 24 hours a day. The Californian's only radio man had gone to sleep for the night. The RMS Carpathia did answer the call, but it was hours away. By the time it reached the Titanic's position, the ship had already foundered. In 1912, maritime communication was still unregulated. Help was close enough to see the ship sink, but entirely deaf to its calls for aid. Survivor accounts of the ship's final moments were often contradictory. Modern forensics clarify that as the bow flooded, the ship tipped to a 15-degree angle. This placed the immense weight of the unsupported stern onto the bottom keel near the engine rooms. The engineering analysis shows that the ship failed from the bottom up. The keel snapped first under the crushing pressure, sending a catastrophic fracture tearing upward through the internal decks. The upper decks were the last to fail. The engineering marvel that was meant to be unsinkable was ultimately destroyed by an upward tear originating in its very foundation. By 2:20 a.m., the Titanic vanished. In the lifeboats, 700 survivors waited in the freezing dark. while over 1,500 people were lost to the ocean. The disaster immediately rewrote the laws of the sea. It led to the Solace Convention, which mandated enough lifeboats for every passenger and required 24-hour radio watches on all ships. The wreck remained hidden for 73 years until it was discovered in 1985 by Robert Ballard, resting 12,000 feet deep. Today, the site is a memorial, yet it continues to attract extreme sightseeing. Even a century later, the pursuit of the wreck has resulted in further loss of life, showing that the abyss remains as dangerous as ever. The Titanic serves as a permanent case study in engineering and physics. It is a reminder that even our most advanced machines can be undone by the smallest overlooked variables, and that nature will always find a way to exploit our microscopic flaws.